So you've been coaching, what, 40 years now? How often do you think you've run into that with highly successful people?
I get it a lot. They'd say, I'm just a little bit puzzled. My business is going great. I've got beautiful kids. I'm making money, but there's still something missing.
There's a belief or a hope that when I get such and such, then I'll be able to feel or be happy. And everyone starts a do trying to have so they can be. We're not humans doing, we're humans being.
One of the things that I used to say is, if you're not happy before you got $1 million, you're not going to be any happier after you got $1 million. If you said to me, give me 2 things to work on to be happier, the first one is a guy comes over and sits opposite me and says, oh, I found what you're talking about fascinating. I didn't know who he was. I thought he was a salesperson. So we were talking, I was asking him questions, which I'm prone to do. He was telling me about everything he was doing and, you know, he's getting on with life. And then I said to him, so how happy are you? And he went, what? I said, how happy are you? And he said, Jesus, why would you ask me that? I said, well, it's a pretty simple question. Generally, how happy are you? I'll never forget it. He just went, shit. I don't know the answer to that. And I said, well, that's sort of your answer, really. We kept talking, but he just said, I can't believe what I'm even saying to you. And it turned out he ran a very large company, 100 employees or something. And he came back to me the next day and he said, no one's ever asked me that. He said, I've been thinking about it ever since. You know, this whole thing of state, there's surely only one thing that's important, is how happy you are.
It's an interesting thing. How much would you say you've run into that? So you've been coaching, what, 40 years now?
Yeah.
How often do you think you've run into that with highly successful people?
Yeah, so about a month before that, you and I ran Strategic Leadership, which is the course that we run for managers. There was a large group. It was about 25 people there. And we go through leadership, how to run a business, coaching, training, all that stuff. And I couldn't believe how many males, they were all males, there would have been 4 out of the 25 came up to me and said, can I just have a word? And they'd say, I guess I'm just a little bit puzzled. I hear the stuff you're talking about. You're talking a lot about state and how happy you are and what's happening in your life. My business is going great. I've got beautiful kids. I'm making money, but there's still something missing. Still something not there. So I get it a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that I'd personally experienced. I can remember getting to a point, particularly in my sales career, where I had a lot of people externally saying to me, wow, look at the success, look at what you're doing, look at your profile, you're X amount within the entire country of salespeople. And yet for me personally, I didn't feel like I was being successful, or something was missing. It was like an empty present. Or I remember once listening to Russell Brand talk about when he finally got to the point of being a movie star, living in Hollywood, living out his dream. He said it was like finally getting to the restaurant that everybody said is the best possible restaurant you can go to. And when you get your plate, you dig in, but it's like eating a mouthful of sand.
Yeah, wow.
And so there's a lack of, I guess, substance or something that's not right with what's happening. And it's a hard thing to explain, but with all of your experience, do you find that that's a symptom of something else? If it's coming up all the time, what do you think's underneath that?
I used to say stuff, you know, like 30, 40 years ago, and I look back and I didn't really quite know what I was saying. But one of the things that, you know, now I sort of get, I've sort of caught up with what I was even thinking then. And one of the things that I used to say is, if you're not happy before you got $1 million, you're not going to be any happier after you got $1 million. You might be for a while, but then the real root of the issues will just kick in. If you look at the question, how do you be happier? Because that's really what it's all about. It's not about the money. I mean, Hormozi in that interview with Anthony Robbins, I think didn't he just break the record? He did 100 million. Didn't he do 100 million in a day or something in sales? And he's sitting there with his t-shirt and his baseball cap on backwards and whatever else. Amazing guy, relaxed as hell. And he says to Anthony Robbins, yeah, I've done all this and I've got all the success, but there's something missing. And if you were to ask me, what is the way to get to happier times? I think there's two words that mean a lot to me. One is awareness. And when I talk about awareness, for me, it's to talk about how you operate. And we all know, or I believe, that we bring stuff with us from our ancestors. We bring Uncle Charlie's heart disease, and we bring our mother's obsessiveness and our dad's ADHD and all this sort of stuff. We bring some with us, and we get the rest as we move through life. People in authority tell us stuff. It's like some people say you're born with an empty bag. Well, I think you're born with a bag over your shoulder that's got a whole lot of stuff from your ancestors. And then stuff goes in the bag. When you're 5 years old, you go to kick a ball and you fall on your ass, and someone in authority, guess who, says, see, you're not a soccer player. It's your sister that's a soccer player, not you. Goes in the bag. Bring home a maths result when you're 8 years old and it's a D, and they go, see, you're not a mathematician. It's your brother that's good at maths, not you. That goes in the bag. And after a while, the bag starts to get bigger and bigger, and it weighs us down, and it affects the way we look at situations, opportunities, or problems. So awareness of how we operate. This is why we love, in the seminars we run, we love, getting caliper done to see how you operate. We love doing your values to see how you operate. We love the Enneagram, because 9 personality types, 300-year-old Sufi wisdom, because it's about awareness of what's here. So no awareness, we really just keep bashing on, going round in circles, and in the end we just say, well, this is me, and we call it fate.
Yeah, and I think there's so much there, and I get, for some people, sometimes the whole idea of you've brought stuff from your ancestors can feel a bit like woo-woo. But these days with epigenetics, it's tried and true. There's lots of scientific evidence to suggest that that's 100% correct. And I think that process of adding things to the bag as you move through life, probably the best description I've ever heard that landed for me was reading a book called The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, I think was the author. And he talked about that you enter the world, and then as a child, you go through a domestication process, a little bit like we've done with some of our pets or animals. I know that Gracie's running around here somewhere, your beautiful border collie. But we go through this process of people in authority, whether it be our parents, higher up members of the culture, start to give us feedback of what's good and bad. And through that process, the parts of us that we were told are bad end up going in the bag. And it's like anything in life, or particularly when we're coaching people, one of the very first things that we want to do to help them is we want to get an understanding of where you want to go, but where are you right now? Where are we starting from?
Yeah.
And on a personal level, that's what awareness is all about.
Yeah, 100%.
The ability to step back without judgment and say, this is what's happening for me here and now. Here are the things that are playing out. Here's the behaviors that I've got, in a non-judgmental way, but to just become aware of this is what's going on, and these are the things that are driving how I've got to the point I'm at right here.
That awareness, if you combine that with, I think, the number 2 thing that I see over and over again is acceptance. So if you become aware of how you operate, that the hand you've been dealt, the changes you make, the changes you want to make, all that stuff, the things that trigger you, and you actually, when I was in New Zealand with Paul, and I was going to see him, and the radio station in the car, I couldn't change it. I didn't know how to change it. It was radio talkback. And I thought, oh, damn it. And I was about to turn it off, and she said, look, what we want you to do is call in callers and tell us, what's the biggest lie your grandmother told you? So I left it on. First caller rings up, and he said, I'm 62 years old. My beautiful grandmother, he said, I can remember this like it was yesterday. I must have been 7 or 8 years old. I was eating an apple, and my beautiful grandmother, I loved her. She looked me in the eye and said, if you eat the apple core, does anyone know the answer to this? A tree is going to grow inside your stomach.
Yeah.
He said, now, when I eat an apple, all I can do is eat round the outside, and then I have to throw it away.
Yeah.
He said, I'm 62 years old. So that's a trigger. It's the same as the second caller, by the way, said, my beautiful grandmother was a female caller. She said, I'm 49. My beautiful grandmother, I was sitting by the fire, and she said, if you sit so close to the fire, your kidneys will melt. She said, I tried hot yoga. I can't even do hot yoga because I think my whole body's going to collapse on me.
Yeah, wow.
Can't sit in front of fires. And, it's like 40 years ago. So these triggers are what can run with us as rackets. And awareness to me means you get to a point where I'm aware how I am, and I know what I do well, I know what I struggle with, I know what I need to work on, what I don't. But the second part of awareness and all the stuff that's in there is acceptance. So if you said to me, give me 2 things to work on to be happier, the first one is to be aware who you are, and the second one is to accept it. Because it is who you are. You are 4 billion years in the making. You've got to this place. Yeah, things trigger you. Somebody says something and it's been sleeping, just like an apple or a fire. It triggers you and you start to get mad. As you become aware of these things and you accept them, a lot of them just drop away. One of the happiest families I ever saw, and I still remember them, they sold a little farm out from our office in Dunedin. He was an ex-Air Force guy with the New Zealand Air Force. She was a teacher. They had 4 kids. They homeschooled them. And they decided that they wanted to travel. They didn't have much money. They sold the farm for next to nothing. It was a little tiny farm. And I remember them all laughing and giggling and getting into this truck trailer that looked like an old sort of carnival trailer. It had a chimney on the top of it. And they called in at my office to say goodbye, just because we got on so well. And this family just drove off. And I said, where are you going? They said, we have no idea.
Yeah, wow.
They were so happy. There was no money involved. It's not the point. If you're aware how you operate and you accept it, there is joy. There is joy in everything. It's nothing to do with 5 million, 10 million, 100 million. So yeah, I think those 2 things, awareness and then acceptance of how you are, then you can start to say, I don't want to be set off by this trigger anymore. If you're aware of a trigger, aware first of a trigger, that when you build your business, you then seem to sabotage it. That when you have a good month, you can't believe it, you get imposter syndrome, and so you sabotage it. If you're aware of that, you can push the override button next time it comes up. You can do a really good month and go, normally, you take it lightly, you hold it lightly. Normally, I would sabotage this now, next month will be rubbish. But I'm not going to do that. Just for fun, I'm going to keep doing the activity that made this money. I'm going to make more. And we just have fun with it. Awareness and acceptance. And if I had to add one more word, it would be humour. Awareness, acceptance, and then hold it lightly. You know, you and I, when we're together, we take the piss out of each other quite a lot. And I have other businesses, and we're all the same. And it's not a bad way to be. It's a good way to get awareness, to understand, I do that. Somebody takes the piss out of you, go, yeah, I do that. Accept it. And then maybe you can make some change. Neuroscience now is saying we don't have the ability to make the choices we think we do. Because everyone just says, change, make different choices. You're not making the right life choices. You can't do it. The way you've been programmed, your algorithm that you've been dealt, because everyone has that algorithm that runs their life, that was dealt to you by ancestors, by stuff you've picked up along the way, things that people have said. That algorithm means you will react to an opportunity, a problem, or a situation. You're going to react to that the same every single time, unless you have awareness. I normally react this way. I'm going to change that this time.
And I think the acknowledgement part is a really important part of it, because it's the acceptance or acknowledgement that, hey, this is happening and here's my role in it, that it's not outside of me, that I'm part of it. But I often find what you'll see happen for people is that they'll get the awareness, but then not want to accept what's happening or their role in it. And I know that quite often we'll talk about, we want to be opening into these things, which is part of the battle, because keeping it light is the way to do that. But what we see all too often, and I'd be interested to get your take on this, is people will become aware and then contract away. And they don't want to have that moment of acknowledging, yeah, I do that, or yeah, that is a pattern of mine, or yeah, that behavior does come out in these circumstances quite often. They tend to contract, and rather than acknowledging it and leaning into it to be able to make a change, they move away from it. So, and this has been a perennial problem for forever. So one of Socrates' most famous quotes is, "The only thing I know for sure is that I don't know." But he wasn't talking about whether or not he knew things. Obviously, he was an absolute genius. But what he was saying was, quite often as human beings, we pursue things, we act in particular ways, chase outcomes, and we don't really understand why. As we've got further down the track, we start to see that, okay, part of it is what comes with us from the generations before. Part of it is that domestication process, or the events generally that have a large emotional content for us, that shape the way that we view the world and ourselves as we develop. But there's still this propensity, and I love Jung's quote, which goes something along the lines, I'll butcher this, but man will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid meeting their own soul. Which is a beautifully poetic way, I think, of really looking at what's really going on for me, who am I at my core, with this awareness piece, and then being able to take ownership or acknowledge it or accept it. And so we will develop all of these other strategies or patterns to avoid, once we've got the awareness, dealing with the thing that's been driving it, accepting that that is part of me, even though I don't like it, because the real power is there. Accepting it means, okay, I'm going to take responsibility for what's going on now, even if it's been something that's been programmed externally. But it's an interesting power shift from I'm at the effect of what's been happening to, yeah, that is part of me and I do that, which is painful. But at the same time, then I have the power to change it. Once I accept it's part of me, I can do something about it. Whenever I keep it outside of me, I give the power away and I can't affect change. Is it a fear-based thing?
Yeah, 100%.
But does that fear come from, I don't want to see myself like that? I don't want to, because if I accept that that's part of me, then other people will judge me and then I'll be seen as less than?
So, yeah, I mean, Tracy talks about the fact that when we were, as kids, we actually develop strategies to be liked and to get our parents especially to like us. And even in my art, I'm painting the relationship between fathers and sons. I have 6 sons, technically. Yeah. I have four of my own sons and 2 stepsons who are I adore the whole lot of them. Yeah. This whole relationship between fathers and sons is really fascinating, because I've had 60-year-olds sit in front of me and blubber like children because they just can't prove themselves to their dads.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think what happens, and Tracy talks about kids developing strategies to be liked. Like, you know, one of the natural ones is children smile. Babies smile. It's one of the first things they do. They look up and smile. And that it's actually biologically there to make people go, oh, pick me up and look after me. Yeah. So we develop other strategies, like it's keep quiet, don't talk when I'm not supposed to talk, don't, you know, my house, I can talk about this a lot, and my dad, we weren't allowed to show emotion. He was in the Second World War. We were never allowed to say the words "don't panic" because he been at the front for 3 years.
Yeah.
And we were never allowed to yell and scream. He would just always shut us up. So we developed strategies to be okay and to be safe. Yeah, if you're in a home where, you do the wrong thing, you're going to get a smack. You're not going to do that.
Yeah.
So you develop these strategies. The fact is, though, we don't need those strategies as an adult, but we've still got them. And so if we take on somebody else's, either from our ancestors or as we grow up, what we're actually doing is taking on somebody else's value set. They got that from their parents and we're getting it from our parents. Within that, we want to be safe. We don't want to be laughed at. We don't want to be ridiculed. We don't want to be in danger. We don't want to get put down or, all this stuff. So we develop strategies. The older we get, the harder it is to change them. And the invite, like you just said, is to be aware of them, and then we can override and make change. Papaji, I think it was, says, that's his photo up there on the wall, the Indian guru, which a lot of my teachers learned from. Papaji says there's nothing to be added. There's only that which is to be taken away. And the invite is to take the bag off the shoulder, as I think it was Carl Jung says, take the bag off the shoulder, open the bag, reach inside, pull out that somebody in authority told me I was no good at maths, and say, is it appropriate that I'm living my life based on somebody else's values, which were fucking miserable?
Yeah.
And they made a statement that's stayed with me now for 30 years or 40 years. Is that appropriate? The answer is always no.
Yeah.
So we can move it on. I think that most people would like to explore it if it becomes what they think is woo-woo, and some people just don't want to talk to anybody about anything.
Yeah.
I'm safe, leave me alone, just leave me the fuck alone. But if they want to explore it, it's a matter of doing the work, which is taking something else out of the bag. I'm sitting in front of a fire. Is it appropriate? No. Somebody told me I was useless at, running businesses. Is that real? No, it's not. Take it out of the bag, deal with it, and you have a bunch of concepts and systems and processes to be able to deal with this stuff to make it go away. And the bag becomes lighter. It literally becomes lighter, and where you're weighed down, you sit up. My dad, I love talking about my dad. Second World War, 3 years at the front, literally, in between the German front line and the New Zealand front line.
Yeah, well.
He was a radio operator, and he spent all night out there fixing lines and keeping everyone talking, right?
Yeah, wow.
My oldest brother's called Roger.
Yeah.
It's a wonder I wasn't called over and out, to be honest. So, this guy spent all that time at the war. And when he got home, first of all, no one was allowed to say, don't panic. No one was allowed to get all, excited. He just couldn't take it. And he created strategies for himself. His leg was blown off, so he only had one leg, came over from the war, thrown on a pile of dead bodies at the war. He was pronounced dead, thrown on a pile of dead bodies. Somebody walked past and heard him cough. They went and got him out. They doctored his leg, put him on a ship to go back to New Zealand. He was in Italy. And unfortunately, 3 days before, his dog tags had gone home to New Zealand by boat, got to his mother, and his mother died of a heart attack before she ever saw him again.
That's right.
So this guy, he designs, as we all do, strategies to keep himself safe. So his strategies were, we're not going to have emotion. We were never allowed to talk about the past.
Yeah.
And you will struggle to make me talk about old stories. I don't. This is one, I guess. As I'm getting older, it's starting to happen. But otherwise, we were never allowed to talk about the past. If we started talking backwards or talking about the war, you go, no, we don't talk about that. Those were his strategies. Now, when he was in his 70s, heading towards 80 years old, he got very sick and he really went downhill. And he decided he wanted to talk. And my niece would go round in the afternoon and he would talk about the war. She got it all on record. And he would talk about the things that had happened and the people he saw die. He was in a bunker. He was in a bunker once, and a shell came in through the window, went round and round this concrete bunker, killed his commanding officer, basically took his head off, chopped arms and legs off, went into the middle of this bunker and was spinning. And those who were surviving were all just watching this bomb spinning to see if it was going to go off. And it didn't go off. And it turns out that was because of the French resistance had put faulty detonators in the bomb, right? So this guy designed all these strategies, as we all do, but at 76, he wanted to talk, and he started to talk about this whole thing. And as he did, his health just totally changed. His shoulders came back, he lightened up, he loved talking about it, and he'd never talked about it ever. He was told to go home from the war, get a job as a lift operator, and try and make a life. He lived another 10, 12 years, happy years. And it's the same, I think it's the same with most of us. When you get into this and start exploring it, and the invite is to go to the places that you don't want to go, just like what you're saying.
Yeah.
To go to the places you don't want to go, because that's where growth is. That's where you can widen that emotional bandwidth, because that to me is what it's all about. And men especially, a lot of them have got very narrow emotional bandwidths. And the way you expand that, you have more joy and more sorrow, more pain, but it's a much richer life, is awareness and acceptance.
And it's with intention, I think, is the thing like that you're getting to with that. And what I love about that story is that what we're talking about in a business coaching context, at the very extreme of a life experience or event, the same process of going to the bag and taking those things out, acknowledging them and being able to move past is what literally turned around your dad's health towards the end of his life. Yeah. And so if someone that's been at the extreme of that can do that, is that then the same process that works for these people that we see that have what we would call external success or success by, let's say, industry standards that still feel like something's missing? Is it that process of going to the bag and starting to take some of that stuff out? And then walk me through, can you give me an example? Because I think it is unbelievably important that we do hold it lightly. I think we get too serious with too much stuff, and we nearly strangle the life out of things and ourselves before we can get anything meaningful done.
Yeah.
And so we need to have humour with it. But I think for a lot of people, they would find it hard to imagine, how do I hold or have humour with some of the things that are causing me so much stress, anxiety, or uncomfortability in feeling?
Yeah, so the invite has to be the difference between thinking and feeling. And so, you have processes and coaching that helps with this, and I certainly do. And what I love introducing to some clients, not all, is if you want to grow your life, you want to expand that emotional bandwidth, you have to do the work. And to my mind, the work is reaching in the bag, pulling it out, and saying, I want to look at that. And I'll give you an example. A client not very long ago, we did a process, and he quite sort of cavalierly told me that he hadn't spoken to his mum for years, and he had no relationship with his mum. Now, one of the things neuroscience is saying, for a happier life, you have people around you, and if it can be family or and animals and all this stuff. But family is a big part of this. And if you're unresolved, you either be aware that you're unresolved, accept it, and be happy, or you go do something about it. And you don't have to do anything about it. This is not about whether you breastfed on the left-hand side or the right-hand side. You don't have to go back and do all this shit. But quite simply, as a coach, you say, how about we fix that? He goes, well, what will I do? I said, ring her.
Yeah.
And what do you want to tell her? And he goes, well, I am a bit sorry. Like she did her best to bring. Go and tell her that you did your best. I'm really sorry, and I'd like to try and have her later. Now I can tell you that he did it, and when he rang me, he was just gushing. He was just going, oh my God, we've agreed to have lunch on Fridays or something. And he said, that was one of the coolest things I've done in a long time. Thank you. A lot of these things are not hard. But as we chip away and we have a little breakthrough here and a little breakthrough there, and we do another process, and then finally the whole sort of happiness level just starts to move up. And you can be happy with $1 million, you can be just as happy without it. The external stuff, I don't see much there that makes you happy.
No, well, I think we chatted.
Is there?
Well, we touched on it earlier. I think it's just an amplifier.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So wherever you were at before, it's just going to amplify that.
Yeah, well.
And I think that's the thing that a lot of people find is there's a belief or a hope that when I get such and such, then I'll be able to feel or be happy, which is back to front. And I know that we've spoken about it many times, either in the courses that we've run or in training sessions, about that whole model of be, do, have. And everyone starts at do, trying to have so they can be. And it's back to front. We're not humans doing, we're humans being, which means everything has to start with your own personal state, how you're turning up, which is part of that awareness process of really getting to the point of where am I at right now, so I can shape the way that I interact with the world, which then will be the doing part, which will allow me to have things. But the things aren't the end outcome.
I think, there's people in their 20s, I see it especially in Sydney. Sydney just sweeps you along, and it just appears like you're in your 20s and you're not going to be anything until you've got 5 investment properties and they're all paid off. And let me tell you, whatever you are before you get the 5 investment properties, you're still that after, unless you make change to how you're being. So a lot of people get stuck on that doing and having and doing and having, and they go back and forwards. That, it brings in probably the number 4 word for me. So you've got awareness, you got acceptance, you got humour. And I think that for a lot of young people today, and I get it, they're impatient and they just want to get on, and they've also been taught that they're the centre of the fucking free world and they deserve everything and they should have it now just the same as anyone else. I think the 4th word for me would be to come from a place of gratitude versus a place of entitlement.
Yeah.
And if you're coming from entitlement, which is created through the algorithm,
Yep.
if you've been told your whole life, we don't say no to you, you're capable of absolutely anything. You're a genius. I mean, I was with someone a short time ago, and the mum was saying, you've always been so good at maths. Why don't you go and do something like engineering with maths? And the kid said, Mum, I never got higher than a D in maths, but you always tried so hard. You're amazing. When they're fed this, quite often what comes with it is entitlement.
Yeah.
That I should have it now.
Yeah.
And if you come from that, it's all just external. I need this, I need to do this, and then I'll have that, and then I'll be. Well, you're 100% right. It's not going to work. So that it's a trap. That doing and having is an absolute trap. Come from gratitude. sets everything up in a totally different way, and in a beautiful way. I'm so happy I just bought my first investment house. I'm so grateful. Not, I've bought one, now I've got to get to 2. Now I've got to get to 3. Now I've got to get to 4. You'll never have enough. You'll never have enough. The algorithm will still be running the same way. Unhappy, can't get joy, can't find a relationship, whatever. It's not gonna work. So you come from entitlement, which is, wow, first property, how cool is that? Thank you, universe, I've got 1. Let's see what happens, because I'd love to aim for 2. If I can get it, fine.
Yeah.
Be even more grateful. But it's a totally different place to come to instead of entitlement.
And that's a very future state thing, isn't it? So it's all about what's next. And a lot of it is that external programming, but from a cultural level at the moment. From a cultural level, it is about how successful can you be, and success is generally measured by wealth. And so I get my sense of self-worth from what I've acquired, not who I am. And it's that thing. I can remember a story of Socrates used to go down into the marketplace and be like, oh my God, look how you're dressed. Look how you look, wonderful. How long did it take you to get ready this morning? And the people would say, it took me 2.5 hours to pick out my tunic, to have the gold put on and everything like that. He'd be like, wow. How long did you spend working on your character?
Yeah.
Because we're so outwardly
Wow,
focused.
that's a great story.
So focused on the acquisition of things that we miss the whole point of developing ourselves to be able to find joy in the present moment.
Yeah.
Which I think it's almost one of the worst feelings you can have is outward success and the realization at the acquisition of those goals. So the business people that you coach, it's that Russell Brand story. What a horrible feeling to be at the top of the mountain eating sand and having the realization that, oh my God, I've put so much energy, effort, time into chasing this outcome. And it's not what I thought it would be.
No.
It's actually worse.
Yeah. And I know for you it's the same. You spend quite a bit of time with young people and people in their middle age, which for me, 40s and 50s, with imposter syndrome. And, I didn't realize for a long time, but imposter syndrome comes when everybody else's view of where you should be and how well you should do is higher than yours. So we've got this generation coming through that is being told, center of the universe, you should have anything and everything you want, and you're so special, you're unbelievable. And we've got this high expectation, and I'm not there yet. And I'm telling you now, it causes a lot of dis-ease.
Yeah.
When you get to 28 and you're going, shit, I should be way further on than where I am right now.
Yeah.
One of my sons, that's exactly where he is. I should have everything by now. I'm 38 years old. I should have everything. Should all be mine. And it doesn't work like that. Imposter syndrome is an interesting one, even to the point of it sort of backing up what we're saying. Somebody gets $100,000 check for a month, which is a lot of money in anyone's terms. If it doesn't fit with your view, your self-view, you will fix it the following month. It's going to go down.
I can remember a really successful agent once saying to me, success is like a prickly coat. If you're not ready for it when it comes.
If you're not ready for it, you're going to fix it the following month. Yeah. And you'll do it subconsciously. You won't even know you're doing it. And you'll say, oh, see, then I had a terrible month.
Yeah.
I'll quote Plato. And I'm pretty sure maybe it was Socrates, but they talked about that whole towards pleasure versus away from pain. And, we go away from the pain of getting fired, of not being able to pay the rent and not having enough money, versus saying, what do I want out of this? What's the pleasure I want out of this? What's the joy I want out of this? And it may have nothing to do with money. I'm just going to enjoy helping people move house. I'm going to enjoy helping people get their dreams in terms of their biggest asset. If you come from that, you can go towards pleasure a lot of the time. Plato said, we're actually happier going away from pain more than we are in the pursuit of pleasure.
Yeah.
And I totally get that. We go to the bottom and then we go, man, I've got to get listings. I've got to go off my ass, or I've got to do something. So away we go. And then we get up to sort of the midline where our self-view is. And then we stop. We don't go beyond there. And, people say, how come this guy's doing $3 million? Well, his self-view from the start was there, $3 million. That was where his pleasure spot was. It's fine. He just goes straight there. We're talking about not how you're already programmed, which you should accept. Yeah, you should be aware of and accept and hold lightly. But we're talking about making change. My algorithm is creating what I've got now.
Yeah.
Without it being a racket, a drive that comes from my algorithm, I want to go to 500,000 instead of 250. I want to go to 500,000. How do I make that change? And it starts with awareness. It doesn't start by setting a goal of $500,000. It's not going to happen.